Hello and welcome to another episode of Equipping the Core. Our contracting professionals play a critical role in bridging the gap between industry and the program offices to ensure we're equipping our Marines with the best capabilities for the fight. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Johany Deal, Director of Contracts for Marine Corps Systems Command, about what it's like working in contracts here at the command, and we'll also have a conversation about upcoming engagements with industry. Johany, thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us. Before we dive into contracts and what that's all about, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been here on this acquisition team?
So, again, thank you for having me today. I'm very excited to sit down here and have some contract discussions with you, Manny. You love it every time I do come by.
I know.
So a little bit of my background. So I've been with the command as a whole. I came here to support PEO Land Systems.
Mm-hmm.
I was the head of contracts there in 2016. So in February 2016, so I'm going about now 6 years closely.
Okay.
This February coming up. So it's gone quick. I feel like I've done a lot, even it's just in this.
We may have spent some time together.
We
over
have,
there.
yes. I used to go down the hallway and talk to you quite a bit.
There you go. There you go.
So, and that's kind of my experience here getting into the command. But I'm from Puerto Rico. A little bit of my background.
Okay.
I was born there, and then I came to Virginia when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and kind of grew up in the area.
Look, it took a podcast to find out we have that in common too. I'm not from Puerto Rico, but I am from the islands, and
the island connection will have that. So I came over and with my parents, and like I said, lived here ever since, and just loved it. I love the area. I love working here, and having an opportunity to work here in Quantico is coming like back to my roots, growing up in Stafford, here close by. So it's just. It's been a great experience, and a little bit of my professional background. When I started in contracts, I actually worked with the Naval Air Systems Command at Pax River. So I was there for quite a few years, supporting PEOA, a lot of the aircraft programs. And due to family, I came back to Virginia, supporting Missile Defense Agency for a couple years, and then had the great opportunity to come back to the Navy Marine Corps family when I came over to work for PEO Land Systems. So very excited to do that. So.
That's great. So, But I got to ask you, what attracted you to defense contracting? I've had a little exposure to the FAR and to the volumes and volumes of regulation. I got to ask the question, what attracted you to this?
Okay, I'm going to be honest, right?
Okay.
This is our talk. So when I came into contracts, I had no idea, right? What attracted me initially to come down this path was my dad was in the federal government.
Okay.
I thought being a federal employee, the benefits that it brings, the security that it brings to be a federal employee was great. That really attracted me after college. And I was like, okay, if I get a job, that's what I want to do. And when I was doing my master's, my concentration was in contracts and procurement. And one of my professors actually told me, hey, you should join the contracts, the DOD contracts through the Navy intern program. So that's how I got into it. Okay. Originally, I thought about going to law school, going down that path to become a lawyer. So I thought, hey, this is not bad. Let me see what happens, kind of putting two and two together. And being in this field now, I know we have a lot of laws and regulations, so it kind of makes sense. But back then, I'll tell you, it wasn't like, I want to do DOD contracting, when I was doing my master's. It's just where my path took me, and I'm very happy and fortunate that I did get into this career because it just offers so much and opens so many doors for me, myself professionally, but also for my family and being able to provide for them. So it's been a great experience so far.
Well, I may be biased because having worked with you for the last few years, I'm also grateful that you're here. I mean, I think you do a fantastic job for the command and for the Marines ultimately. You've got a great team. You've got a huge team. Can you tell us a little bit about your team, how large they are, and the the fact that they support nearly 500 programs?
Exactly. So, thank you so much. We do have an amazing team here of contracts professionals that support our command and our mission. We have about 253 contracting professionals. They range from contracting officers, we have contract specialists at all levels, from interns to entry level, mid-level, senior contract specialist. So we do have a large group. We also have very professional, acquisition savvy contracts professionals here that I think our command is very lucky to have. And I know every day I come in and I thank them because we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for them. And I know that, and I let them know that quite a bit because I think it's important to recognize our employees, especially in where we find ourselves today in the acquisition environment that we're in, fast paced, get the money, executed, just a lot of pressures that they have from all of the different aspects that and the interactions that we do have in a day-to-day basis with all the different professionals from the other competencies. So great team, big team, but they're just, doing amazing.
And I do get to peek behind the curtain on occasion, so I do have to give you a big old shout out because your team did a phenomenal job closing out the year not too long ago, and we were extremely successful at, I believe, a 99.9% closeout rate, which is phenomenal. I mean, that obviously ensures the American taxpayer that we're making every dollar and every cent count. So
yeah, and again, thanks for recognizing that. I think this is the first time that we could remember in which our team, even during the COVID impacts that we've had, just kicked it out, of the park. They just hit a home run with this. We ended the year early, which we've never done that. Usually people are working till midnight, the last day of the fiscal year. This is the first time we've been able to do it on time. Like you said, obligate those funds, worked very hard. So, and it was recognized throughout the leadership, not only within the Marine Corps, also within the Department of the Navy, of how great our contracts team done and our acquisition team as a whole and other folks that have helped, from the other competencies to make this happen. So very fortunate, and hopefully next year we'll keep doing that. But yeah.
So that's outstanding. It's a nice tie-in to talking about the relationships you have with the different programs. Can you tell us a little bit about the intricacies of maybe your contracting specialists and the things they have to deal with interacting with program offices?
So the way that I describe our contract specialists, even when I speak to the contract specialists themselves, I say, you're a jack of all trades.
Right.
You touch everything, right? You got to know your financial, you got to know logistics, a little bit of engineering, you got to be a lawyer, you got to, every single aspect, because you are that focal point and the interaction with all those competencies. Because at the end of the day, you take all those outputs from those different people to make our contracts, right? To get those requirements that we do from the Marines, bring it into paper, basically, and put it on a contract that then it supports the requirements. It also looks at the taxpayers' money, right? Fair. We always talk about fair and reasonable pricing, right? It doesn't have to be the cheapest, but it has to be fair and reasonable because we also have our industry partners as part of this. So that's kind of how I see it is our contracts professionals are in the middle of all those different players, and that's the interaction we have with the program offices that are made up of all these different competencies.
So if I could just paint a picture real quick, so you get me to a contract, you do all this research, you get the fair price, maybe not the best price, but the fair price that's going to provide the services with the capabilities or the equipment that they need. Are you done? You wash your hands, you go home?
No. No, that's just the beginning. It takes a lot to get to that point, but that's just the beginning. After we award the contract, we work with our contracting officer representatives or our cores, right? Usually there's somebody within the program that then works with our contractors, with our primes, to make sure that we're getting the deliveries on time, that they're executing what we need that was written into those requirements, so then we can meet the fleet's needs, right? So it doesn't stop right there. The administration still needs to occur. We still need to have that constant feedback with the program office, with our program managers, with our financial folks as we're executing, because finance comes into that, right? Are they spending the money? We're putting the money on the contract. So all of that.
Is there money available?
Is there money available? Exactly. That's the critical part right there. Do we have money for our next option exercise? So it's just continues. It's just a continuation, right? And once that contract is over, usually is a follow-on. So it's a never-ending process, and that is just, the nature of the work that we do. That is acquisition. That is what we do. We make sure that our fleet has what they need, and sometimes the war we're fighting today is going to change tomorrow. We don't know. So it's just a constant, never-ending process, but it's a process that we have laid out effectively that we can do those changes quickly and support a mission.
So I'm glad you mentioned the synergies that exist between the different competencies within an acquisition team, whether it's the financial management folks or the business manager at a particular program that he or she is trying to get information. So you do a lot of bonding, you do a lot of fence building, so to speak, to bring everybody together. Is it fair to say that maybe on any given day you're not exactly certain what you're going to encounter?
Absolutely. Right. It's never ending. It's never boring, I'll tell you that. You walk in, you're thinking, today I'm going to get X, Y, and Z done. I'm going to talk to Susan over here, and we need to get this modification done. And as soon as you walk in the door, that's totally not what you do. Something else comes up. The program manager tells you that you need to change gears, maybe in a procurement that you're about to release an RFP, or we get a protest, or just different things just come out of nowhere. But that's just the nature of our business.
You ever find yourself as the person who says no?
Well, listen. A lot of people make that assumption. Contracts always says no. But this is what I tell people. And what I also tell my folks in regards to my contracting officers. Don't say no. That should never come out of your mouth.
Right.
Well, you need to say, okay, what is it what you're trying to get to?
Right.
And let's see how we can get there. Maybe not the path that the person that's coming to us, maybe it's not the path that we're going to take necessarily, because it might be a regulation or statute or something that prevents us from doing it the way that they're thinking of doing it. But we can get there. There's always a way to do it. I know you spoke earlier about the FAR, our Federal Acquisition Regulation book, being thick. It's a very thick, right?
Yes,
and then we also
know.
have the DFARS, the Defense Manual. So there's something always in those books that gives us that gray area that we can get to the yes, to the end game, to support whatever it is, maybe the program manager or the logistics person or whoever it is that's coming to us asking for advice. But it should never be no. And that's something that I do want to get out there is people have that perception of contracts. It's like all they want to say is no. Like,
but
not necessarily.
You do spend a lot of time doing research, and that's a critical component, because a lot of these programs are on you got a schedule to maintain.
Absolutely.
Cost, schedule, and performance.
Right.
Schedule is very critical. So is it fair to say that your team spends a lot of time researching, looking for ways to get things done?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the majority of the time. Our contracts folks, they're looking at ways to make it happen. And that's the majority. When we have all those regulations for a reason, and sometimes it's not right there. It's like, oh, maybe somebody did something differently, right? And it's not just the books, right? We also talk to our counterparts within the Navy, the Army, the Air Force. Is that, collaboration that we do have, the reachbacks that we do have, and the coalitions that we have built throughout, because a lot of people that have come to our command might have worked for the Army. They haven't worked for the Navy. And they're like, I think so-and-so did this. And myself too, right? So I reach back to my counterparts throughout the dawn that I know as well to see, have you done something like this? So there's always a way, and somebody might have done something similar, maybe not exactly what our situation is, but we always find a way.
Do you have, so you have your team encompasses folks who've maybe done contracting with some of the other services?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of our contracting officers and even our leaders within the contracts, they have come from different DoD agencies, throughout our different agencies. So we do have a lot of that. And it's great because it brings that diversity that we want within their workforce. I love it. I thrive of that because we don't know everything.
Right.
And sometimes the way that we're doing business today, maybe somebody else did a little bit different. That I was like, well, that looks like a good idea. I came from NavAir.
Right.
I came from a little bit of background. I bring some of that in here. Some of the things that I've learned in my past. And I think it has helped. So that diversity and that different way of thinking, ideas, is how we are able to be successful. And the changes that we have made, how we talked about earlier, getting things done, quickly as we can, is by bringing some of those things, into play, some of those ideas, way of doing business better, more efficient, that then we can be successful.
So I got to ask you, you do have a NavAir background, and a couple other agencies. How do things that we do here compared with those agencies? Marines tend to be a little rough around the edges at times, but how do you find doing business here?
I think pretty much, everywhere you go is different, right? Because the different mission,
right.
The different, way of doing business. But at the same time, there's also the same urgency, right? They're just executed differently.
Right,
They're
right.
looked at differently. So yes, it's different in that regard. But I also see a lot of similarities. They have the same challenges, because when you look at an acquisition command like NavAir, like here, we have a lot of the same challenges. Time that you talked
Right.
about, money, right? And all of the things that a program manager needs to do is very similar. So it might be a little bit different in that way of the mission,
Right.
but I also find a lot of similarities at the end of the day. And the basis that I, learned when I was in NavAir coming here has, I've been able to use that.
You
and
got
be
that great
successful.
foundations already there.
Exactly.
Let me ask you, we've got folks in California, we've got folks down in Florida. Do you have contracting personnel out in those areas as well?
Yes.
Supporting the SysCom mission?
Yeah, so we do have a couple of contracts folks in California, MECTISA, supporting that group. And we also have a couple of folks down in Traces in Florida supporting our training program. So yeah, we do have those two locations plus here in Quantico. We also have folks in Maryland supporting PM McCo up there, our cyber side of the house. So we're spread out throughout the country, but we also have an ability to be together. I know a lot of now we do things virtually. So I really make an effort that even though they are in different locations throughout the country, they're still part of the command and feel part of the command.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the things going through my head is we've been in a COVID environment for a while. Has that impacted your team? Or have you been able to work through some of the challenges?
So, initially, I think all of us went through the shock, right? This command for many years.
There are people who like coming into the office.
Exactly. Some people like it, right? Yeah. And it's like everybody's different. But we went from a culture that was very face-to-face. Every day you were in the office to now that's not the case anymore. And when you're thinking of integrated product teams that we call IPTs, we kind of are in that environment that face-to-face made sense, right? So we really had to readjust. We put some things in place to make sure we still have that connection. Within our competency and contracts, we developed a employee connection type of program that we partner people that are new to the command with us, with somebody maybe not within their team but from another team to have that connection. We also did a new employee guidebook, because before you could walk to somebody and say, hey, how do you do this? Or what access do I need to this?
Right.
You don't have that anymore. So we developed that because that was a need. We ended up getting a lot of people during COVID that came into the command, and it was like, whoa, right? And we weren't prepared. I mean, just honestly, we weren't prepared to be in 100% virtual, everybody at their houses. But I think now we got the groove of it. We were able to execute fantastic, like we spoke about. So from a execution and getting the mission done, we were amazing. Right. But when COVID hit, in regards to the people side, we weren't prepared. And now we are. We took the lessons learned. We have sat with supervisors. We have put guides and things in place that whoever comes into our command is just going to be able to hit the ground running and feel comfortable that they're not just out in space. So I'm really proud of our team right now.
That's great feedback, because there's some folks who just like being in the office, like the interaction, but it's amazing. I've spent my entire life engaging with people face
Right.
to face, and but I have found some solace as of late to be able to stay home a couple of days a week and just focus on what I need to get
Right.
done without somebody dropping by just to say hello.
interruptions.
Not that I mind the hellos.
You
The
don't
hellos,
mind my hellos?
I don't mind the hellos at all. But I think
Good.
it is it can be rather challenging. These are things that we've had to go through, and I know so as a contracting officer, contracting specialist, a lot of research, a lot of work. So perhaps working at home has its benefits for.
Oh yeah,
for,
I mean, you just
your
hit
folks.
everything right
Yeah.
there. Is less interruptions. We're able to really do the research, or be able to actually sit down and do our contracts. Instead of being in a meeting, right? Because when we're at the office, sometimes we get pulled, or somebody stops by to pull you to a different meeting. So we actually, in a way, feel like we're working more hours. I don't know if a lot of people out there are doing that, but that's a lot of the feedback we get. We're
Right.
working more hours. But at the same time, we can just walk right outside to our living room
Right.
and be able to have that family life balance that I think a lot of us, with the commute in the area and everything, I know that was a big anxiety. I know for
Right,
me
right.
personally, that saving of an hour each way, it's tremendous, because now I can take the kids to actually a soccer game, or
Right.
take them to practice. So that's a lot of the feedback that we've gotten is we're now trying to find a little bit of that balance between work and family.
Being able to have that
Yeah.
mental decompression
Absolutely.
right there at your fingertips without
Absolutely.
leaving a challenging office meeting
Exactly.
to take on a more challenging 95 commute.
Oh, I know.
I got you. So we live in the D.C. area. I mean, this is a fast-paced, often moving environment.
Yeah.
You work here at the crossroads of the Marine Corps. So I have to ask the question because, they're young folks that come through, they do 2, 3 years, 5 years, and then opportunities take them elsewhere. Do you find yourself going through folks, or what's your retention like
So
getting folks here? Is it hard to find contracting officers?
right.
to
So
come?
from a recruiting stance, it is always hard, and anybody or any command, any agency that has contracts know that the contracts competency is such a sought after competency. That's why I think it's such a good profession to be in, because you're going to get so many opportunities. Not only CONUS as well. I mean, there's so many opportunities abroad that you can even go to for contracts.
Right.
So yeah, it's hard. It's competitive. Our workforce, understands that. A lot of them, the reason why a lot of them lately have kind of looked for different, either for retirement. We've seen a lot of retirements recently. And
People moving back out to the islands. I'm just
I
saying.
know, right? I don't mind moving back to Puerto Rico and being an island. But that's been the most. And to me personally, if people look for opportunities for growth purposes, I applaud that. Right? That's something that I think it's crucial to any career.
Right.
But I'll put a plug in for our command. I'll tell you, it has everything. It has everything. If somebody's interested in doing services, in doing information technology, in doing actually program of record, ACAT, major weapon system programs, our command has it. And that's what I tell our folks that are coming through the interim program when they're starting with their command. We can give you what you need, and getting those basics, getting that broad experience that you're looking for within their command. So if they want something different, we can find that. We actually implemented that within ours. We do rotations as part of the growth, that professional growth that we're looking for people to have. So.
Well, I didn't mean for you to put your recruiting hat on, but since you have it on, if someone is interested in joining your team, where can they get more information? What should they do?
Okay, so there's different ways. We have a actually continuous open, announcement within USA Jobs that people can go into. We also, information, I know we have within Marine Corps Systems Command Facebook page. We have a social media campaign that we are posting constantly. hey, we're having opportunities. But if anybody's interested in submitting their resume, we also have an email address that they can send their resumes to. It's called ctcompetency@usmc.mil. And you guys can send that in there if you're interested in joining our contracts family here.
And we'll get with our producers here, and we'll make sure we get that posted out there. So we've had a wonderful conversation about contracts and why you love your job. I can see that now. The different things. I want to shift focus a little bit because obviously you spend a lot of time engaging and dealing with industry.
Yes.
You spend a lot of time on perhaps the education side, whether it's not just the program manager being educated on, the industry, but also industry and how it can do business with us. Can you share with us some of the initiatives that you've done with industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So since I became the director, one of the things that I wanted to do in regards to the engagement with our industry partners was we implemented what we're calling Marine Corps Systems Command Industry Day. And that's a quarterly industry day that we do that's open to our industry partners. They can sign up. We have done about 3 now. We've had over 400 industry partners participate in those. And the concept of that is it's not just very top level. What we're trying to really give industry for each of the portfolios is information on what upcoming events we have in regards to, or not events, I apologize, is actually the contracts that our opportunities are coming up. Right. So we provide them when the RFIs, the request for information is going to be posted, requests for proposals, when we anticipate awarding. We also provide them some background on the acquisition strategy that we're actually having for each of those opportunities. So it's a lot more information that we've ever provided in the past. And the reason we do it quarterly is so things do change quite a bit, right? As you are aware. Maybe today we have a procurement that's going to be sole source, but maybe something happens that's going to be competitive. And since it changes so often, we wanted to have a touch point with our industry partners that they're able to get that updated information as much as we could provide them. So then they can submit proposals, and then we can open up those opportunities for them. We can get more ideas, we can get more proposals in, and actually more information back when we post to RFIs, because they have enough time to know when something is coming, so then they can be responsive and we can benefit from it.
And you took me down the road I was going to go, which is, you're literally providing a foundational roadmap for industry to look at and say, hey, I need to spend a little more effort on this area because I see the Marine Corps is going to buy a new truck or a new radio or whatever it is that we're looking for in the future. Well, I think that's great and hopefully productive. So let's say I am that industry. I've got a small mom and pop shop and I want to play a part in this. What do I need to do to... Again, I've tried in the past and I know it's challenging. And these are the stories I hear from particularly the smaller independent businesses. Is there a way for those organizations to participate in some of these things?
Absolutely. So they can participate in all the events that we have within our command that it's open. It's not just large, it's for small and large, right? Because even though a large company are participating, we can talk about partnering, right? Maybe if you're starting off new to the government and you don't know as a small business, how do we do business as a prime? Partnering with our large contractors, having that connection is great. We have a great small business office here, and the director really takes time to help those businesses. So if people are interested in doing that, how do I go about doing that? We also have their point of contact on our Marine Corps Systems Command webpage that they can access the small business page and get in contact with our director there. And even if I get an email, I always try to coordinate that information and kind of link up those small businesses with our small business office. And, one advice that I give them is when we're posting our request for information or RFIs, really respond to those, because you never know what we might do. We actually want that. The program offices, the requirements developers want that information of what you have out there as industry, because that's going to tell us what is our strategy. Are we going to go full and open? Or are we going to do a small business set aside? And if you're a small business and you have the capabilities, send it in.
So that leads me to a great question. I don't know if I'm going to stump you or put you on the spot or whatnot, but what are the common problems you see from industry when they're trying to get information in? Are there things that kind of rise to the surface that say if they only took a little more time and read the whole thing? Or
Right. So some of the things that I see when that kind of becomes a challenge, I think, for them to get the business, right, is when we get proposals and they don't address what the government is telling you. We give the instructions within our RFPs and their sections L and M with a purpose, right? So if you don't follow that and if you don't address what's in there, I mean, that's an easy, you're going to be out. And a lot of times that's what happens. And another thing that happens is not submitting your proposals on time. We don't play with that, right? And we've gotten protests. People are like, oh, I sent the email, or I sent it, but it didn't go, but I did send it. Right. And I tell them, don't wait until the last minute. Don't wait until the last minute. Send your proposals in with enough time that if there's a glitch in the system, you're not going to get a pass. And I think a lot of people that are new to the business don't, maybe understand that. And some people that have been doing a business for a while try to do that, but we tell them there's no way around it. So those are the two main things that I see is address everything that's in those instructions, address the requirements, and meet the proposal due dates. I mean, those are easy ones.
So basically, you give them the tools. They just have to pay attention.
Oh, yeah. We give them not only the instructions.
Sounds like you talking to your kids at home. Did you pay attention to what your teacher said? You got to get the homework in on time.
Exactly. Did you read the instructions? Did you read what you were supposed to submit? Because we even tell them how they're going to be graded, right? These instructions, we tell them, you submit this is how the government's going to grade you. So really pay attention to that stuff. And when we post draft RFPs, provide feedback. Right? Don't just say silent. Provide the feedback if you're really interested.
So I kind of got from our conversation, you love your job, you love what you do. What are some of your challenges? What's the biggest challenge for you here?
In regards to, I think our biggest challenge right now is what the phrase I call doing more with less. As our budgets, are more constrained, and as we're trying to do more, right? Our whole goal is to modernize the Marine Corps, right? That is our prime goal. That's where our portfolio managers and our focus with the PEOs is supporting the commandant's, direction. Yeah. And our challenges are money, right? It's a little bit tighter. So how do we come about with some maybe more flexibilities? How we're doing our contract strategies to kind of support and give us the flexibilities that we provide the contractor to incentivize the contractor propose, right? And also to meet our mission. So that's kind of just thinking outside the box, looking at the different accelerated authorities. Like we are using a lot now, other transaction authorities. How do we use those effectively that we can get, more out of that, and getting to know, going into the production parts of OT, how does that work? So now we're doing more and more of that, and we're learning from it. So I think that's from a technical side, some of the challenges.
So it's interesting you mentioned money and funding, because we find ourselves in a continuing resolution.
Yes.
And again, not going to get into a congressional conversation. Politically, things can be challenging, but I don't think folks realize the impact of having a continuing resolution. Can you touch on that a little bit and the impacts it has on your contracts?
It does have an impact because, for example, when we're talking about even simple option exercises, right? To continue our services that we have maybe already on contract. Or if there is, hey, we need this piece of equipment out to our, to our warfighter tomorrow, we just need to exercise. Not having that money is such an impactful thing. And it's a trickle effect. Right? Because what it opens up, maybe if you can't exercise the option now, It opens it up to negotiations. Now we have to renegotiate sometimes our contracts, our prices. And it just creates like a perfect storm in such a already, pressurized environment. Not only for us, also for our contractors.
Right,
I've had many
right.
conversations with the industry partners about stuff like this. And they're also concerned. It's not just us, because their folks are trying to get, things delivered to us and all that, and having to redo everything they did. That's just not,
They got people employed. They got to make payroll at the end of the month.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Do you get, how supportive is industry as we have these conversations? I'm assuming it's a partnership.
It is. I talk to many of our primes, leadership, and they're as concerned as we are, and they know the importance of it. And that's what I try when I have my conversations with industry is we're here as a partner. That's why I say industry partners. And I keep using that because it's not government versus, our contractor. No, at the end of the day, we're here to support each other because without them, we can't succeed either, right? They're the ones that are bringing those capabilities to us. And they understand it. And they tell me that. They say, we understand where you guys are coming from. Because if we don't get the money or if the money goes away, they don't get, right? They don't get the money either, and it impacts their companies. So yeah, it's been a lot of good conversations, and they understand the urgency and need.
Well, listen, Johany, I think this has been an outstanding conversation. I really appreciate you opening up about something that you probably like a little bit on what you do. Yeah. No, I mean, it's often said positivity is half the battle.
Right.
And I think you and your team bring a positive outlook on trying to get things done. And again, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. The proof is in the pudding at the end of this fiscal year when we finished as well as we did. So compliments to you and your team for what they've done. I think I'm a little more educated now on the contracting process. I still don't want to deal with the FAR. The book is just...
Are you sure? I can drop one off.
It's extremely heavy for me to carry around. But no, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming down and speaking with us a little bit. Hopefully our industry partners were taking notes because you said you got to do your homework and get it in on time.
Exactly.
But before I let you go, there is something we here like to do with all our guests. Okay. And obviously that's our lightning round.
Okay, ready.
So, with that said, what's your favorite vacation spot?
Of course, Puerto Rico.
I knew that was coming.
I was like, really?
I knew that was coming. I knew I shouldn't have asked that one.
Good food, good dancing, and a great beaches, and just a great environment. I mean, what else could you ask for?
I've spent a few days there myself.
Okay, great.
Actually, the Marine Corps sent me there on occasion, so story for another day. I got to ask you, what's a TV show, a book, a movie, or a podcast, any one or all of the above, that you would recommend?
Of course, this podcast. I'll answer that.
You. And I didn't even have to pay her for that.
Later. No, but okay, so I'm a reality TV junkie.
Okay.
So my kids make fun of me because of that.
Okay.
And I love ghost, hunting, ghost shows type of thing. Not because it's October, Halloween. I literally am obsessed with it, and my husband makes fun of me of it. But those are, and there's so many that I won't name them, but those are kind of reality TV junkie and my ghost hunting shows.
That's interesting. I believe we work in what used to be a hospital. There may be a few ghosts running around.
Well, I'm telling you, when the lights go off, I wonder, when I'm here by myself.
And it's not the sensors either. Listen, if you weren't doing contracting, what would you be doing?
I think I would have been a lawyer.
A lawyer.
Yeah.
I knew you were going down that road for some reason.
For some reason.
Yeah. And finally, my favorite, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Time travel.
Yeah. Going back or going forward?
Both.
Oh, both.
Yeah, I
can
could go back
forward.
Exactly.
You can go forward and figure out how it ends up and say,
and
no, you don't want to do that contract. And
then be like, I'm going to fix that.
Listen, Johany, I just want to say it's been great having this conversation.
Thank you.
Again, we've had the pleasure of chatting with Ms. Johany Deal, the Director of Contracts for Marine Corps Systems Command. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Manny, for having me. I appreciate it.
Hopefully talk to you in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Well, this concludes another episode of Equipping the Corps. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. If so, please take a couple minutes, leave us a review, subscribe, tell your friends about us. Till next time, Manny Pacheco signing off.